حي ذو امتلاء أولى وما له مكان سبحانه قد جل عن أين وكيف وزمان.
Hans Wehr, Arabic English Dictionary. He's German. It's beneficial, but he's an Orientalist, yani a Christian who studies Arabic and maybe even Islamic studies, Orthodox Islamic studies. Being like that, he and people like him, they compose their dictionaries, and it's almost impossible for them to remove any mentioning of Islamic things from their Arabic English dictionaries. But what they do refrain from doing is citing the Muslim scholars that they had to copy from their works. So you'll never find, I haven't until now, I won't say never because I can't say that I've seen every word in that dictionary, but I never ever saw anywhere in Hans Wehr where he says, according to Al-Mubarrid, according to Al-Khalil, etc. But where else did he get his information from? So anyway, no, I've never seen it. Never. I saw one Orientalist dictionary where he quotes his sources for every entry. Very good dictionary. A British guy, of course. I wouldn't be surprised if he had a monocle. And it's a huge dictionary. I think it's called Arabic English Lexicon. Many volumes. And each volume is very big. Very tall. And he just quotes from Al-Qamus and Al-Misbah and all the dictionaries, mashallah. Very hefty work. And that's a Christian. So look how much effort he put, how dedicated he was. That volume, that set probably cost hundreds of dollars. It can't be less than hundreds of dollars. So anyway, قال المؤلف رحمه الله, said the author, may Allah have mercy on him, وَأَمَّا بُرْهَانُ قِدَمِهِ تَعَالَى, as for the evidence for his eternality, exalted is he. So here he uses the word burhan. Burhan means evidence. Also dalil means evidence or an indicator or a pointer. And also hujjah. Hujjah means evidence. So these words, pay attention to how they use them. Here you see the Shaykh uses the word burhan. He means intellectual evidence. وَأَمَّا بُرْهَانُ قِدَمِهِ تَعَالَى, as for the evidence, meaning the intellectual evidence for his eternality, exalted is he. فَهُوَ أَنَّهُ لَوْ لَمْ يَكُنْ قَدِيمًا لَلَزِمَ حُدُوثُهُ. It is that, had he not been eternal, then his being created would be necessary. If it's not that he's beginningless, then he would have to have a beginning, because existence is either with a beginning or without a beginning. There's no third option. So if he's not eternal, then he has a beginning. He's created. فَيَفْتَقِرُ إِلَى مُحْدِثٍ, and then he would need one who makes him occur. A muhdith, from hadatha, to happen. So the muhdith is the one who makes something happen. فَيَلْزَمُ الدَّوْرُ أَوِ التَّسَلْسُلُ, and then the mind would go, if God has a beginning, if God is in need of one to make him occur, then the mind goes to one of two places, either to a circular logic or to an unending chain of events into the past. A beginningless chain of events into the past. That's the result of saying God has a beginning. Either you'll go into a circle, or you'll go into an unending chain. It means either you'll say, well, whoever created God, God must have created him, so you'll be in a circle. That A created B and B created A. And even if you put more in between, doesn't matter. A created B, B created C, C created A. Or you go into a beginningless chain of events, which is to say, well, if someone created God, then the one who created God, someone created him, and then someone created him, and then someone created him, and then you keep going forever. Both of those are impossible. The circle is impossible, and a beginningless chain of events is impossible. So, at Dawr, you said at Taalsul, is that what they call infinite regression? Yani, give me a chance, inshallah. Yes. At Dawr means literally circle. Dawr. Taalsul, literally it means a chain or a series. Taalsul, silsila. So here they say, Dawr, the word that I've heard coined is circular logic. Taalsul, the word that I hear coined is infinite regression. Infinite regression, that means, like I said to you, a beginningless chain of events. That's self-contradictory, if you pay attention to the words there. A beginningless chain of events. That's self-contradictory. Why? Because event means something that has a beginning. So a beginningless chain of events is self-contradictory. It's impossible. وَكُلٌّ مِّنْهُمَا مُحَالٌ. And both of those are impossible, meaning mentally impossible. فَثَبَتَ أَنَّ حُدُوثَهُ تَعَالَى مُحَالٌ. And so it is confirmed that God's being created is impossible. وَقِدَمُهُ ثَابِتٌ. And his eternality is confirmed. Aywa. When you talk to an atheist, the atheists are of two schools. Now, each of these schools, they might have various details, they might splinter or split, but all the atheists go back to two schools. One school says, there's no God and the world has a beginning. The other school says, there's no God and the world has no beginning. So as atheists, they're all going to say there's no God. But then they have to explain where the world came from if there's no God. So some of them are going to say the world has a beginning. Some of them are going to say the world has no beginning. As for those who say that the world has no beginning, in particular, their talk might be a little trickier. Their fallacies might be a little trickier, but the key to refuting them, or at least one key to refuting that type, is that he's confirming eternity. If he says the world has no beginning, he means that before this day there was another day, a previous day, and before that day there was a previous day, a day before it, and before that day there was a day before it, etc., till no end. So what is he doing here? He's confirming eternality. So why does he deny the existence of God if he can conceive eternity? What's wrong with him that he denies the existence of God and conceives eternality or eternity? So that's a door for you to argue with those people, among other doors. Ash-SharH, the explanation. Al-ilahu la budda an yakuna azaliya. God must most indubitably be eternal. Wa illa lakana muhtajan ila ghayrihi, or else he would be in need of someone else. Most indubitably. Most indubitably. Yes, indubitable. Say it's indubitable. That means it has to be. I learned that word in my youth from a cereal commercial. وَالْمُحْتَاجُ إِلَى غَيْرِهِ لَا يَكُونُ إِلَهًا. And whoever needs someone else would not be God or a God. وَأَمَّا الدَّوْرِ. As for the circular logic or the circle, فَمَعْنَاهُ, its meaning is توقف وجود الشيء على ما يتوقف وجوده عليه. For the existence of something to be dependent upon something whose existence is dependent upon the first thing. For the existence of something to be dependent upon another, this other's existence is dependent upon the first. كما لو قيل زيد أوجده عمرو وعمرو أوجده بكر وبكر أوجده زيد. Like if it were said Zayd was created by Amr, and Amr was created by Bekr, and Bekr was created by Zayd. هذا معناه, this is its meaning. فيه وقف وجود زيد على وجود عمرو وعلى وجود بكر. In it is making the existence of Zayd dependent upon the existence of Amr, whose existence is dependent upon the existence of Bekr. وَهَذَا شَيْءٌ لَا يَقْبَلُهُ الْعَقْلُ. And this is something that the intellect does not accept. لأنه يؤدي إلى القول بأن هذا مخلوق لشيء هو مخلوق له. Because its meaning, because it leads to saying that this is a creation of something that is a creation of his. He's created by his own creation. A makhluqun li makhluqihi, meaning created by his own creation. Now that is, it is absurd and it's simple. And the real point here is to understand the concept, not to be stuck on the example. Understand the concept, and then whenever you encounter it, you'll be able to identify it. You'll say, oh, no, that's not valid. That's a circle. And then you can explain why. And because of its simplicity, the Shaykh mentioned it first. The other one requires more thought and is easier. It's a stronger fallacy. It's easier to slip past a person. The Shaykh says, وَأَمَّا التَّسَلْسُلْ. As for the chain or the series, فهو توقف وجود شيء على شيء يتوقف وجوده على غيره وذلك وجوده يتوقف على غيره وذلك يتوقف وجوده على غيره. أي كل هؤلاء خالق لما يليه إلى غير انتهاء. Its meaning is that a thing's existence is dependent upon something else, whose existence is dependent upon something else, whose existence is dependent upon something else, and that thing, its existence is dependent upon something else, meaning each one of them would be the creator of what comes after it, with the chain going back with no end, meaning with no end into the past. وَهَذَا لَا يَقْبَلُهُ الْعَقْلُ. And this one, the intellect does not accept it also. And this one might be more dangerous. Also, it might be more prevalent. When I say that, I mean, what's important here is to understand the concept of it so that you can identify it. Just like yesterday in a class we had, and we were talking about the place. Why do we say that the universe in totality must not be in a place? Because that leads to tasalsul. because that would mean that the place is in a place, and then that place is in a place, and then that place is in a place, and then you keep going forever. So that's impossible. That's Taalsul. Why do we say that there has to be an indivisible particle, a piece that can't be split? Because if not, then that means that a piece could be split, and then that piece could be split, and then that piece could be split, and then forever you keep going and never stop. And that's impossible into the past, yani. Because we're breaking it down to its origin. But a series into the future is not impossible. A series into the past is impossible. A series into the future is not impossible. وَمِثَالُ التَّسَلْسُلِ أَنْ يَقُولَ شَخْصٌ لِآخَرٍ. And an example of a series is for a person to say to another, لا أعطيك درهما حتى أعطيك قبله درهما ولا أعطيك درهما حتى أعطيك قبله درهما وهكذا لا إلى أول. I will not give you a coin unless I have given you one before it. And I will not give you that coin unless I gave you one before it, etc., with no beginning. فَمَعْنَى ذَلِكَ أَنَّهُ لَنْ يُعْطِيَهُ دِرْهَمًا. And the meaning of that is that he will never give him a coin. Some people don't understand this example. Dr. Wafi gave us a very nice demonstration that made it very clear. It was the best demonstration of that, clarification of it, that I ever heard from anyone. So, for example, first of all, hear the rule, and then I'll give you the example. The rule is Taalsul, confirmation of Taalsul, confirmation of a series into the past, is truly a negation of the present. Confirmation of an unending series into the past, a beginningless chain of events. Confirmation of a beginningless chain of events is a negation of the present. That's why the Shaykh says here, فَمَعْنَى ذَلِكَ أَنَّهُ لَنْ يُعْطِيَهُ دِرْهَمًا. The meaning of that is that he will never give him a coin. How's that? In case someone doesn't understand, you can use anything. If you have some cards in your wallet, for example, 5, 6, 7 cards or something, if you have numerous things, if you have keys, whatever, you can use them. So here I have in my hand some pens, I have a comb, I have a back scratcher here. So if I were to say to someone, I will not give you this unless I gave you this before it. And I won't give you that unless I gave you this. And I won't give you that unless I gave you this. And I won't give you that unless I gave you this. And I won't give you that unless I gave you this. Now, if I stop here and I give you this one, the present one now, then what will you get? Tell me, what will you get? If I stop at this point and give you this one that I just stopped at, then you get them all. Exactly, true. But if I keep going and I won't give you this, I won't give you this unless I give you this. And I won't give you this unless I give you this. And I won't give, and then I keep going forever and ever. Then what will you get? Nothing. Exactly. So that's why a beginningless chain of events, or infinite regression, if you want, a series into the unending past or the beginningless past, etc., is impossible to the intellect, and it is truly a denial of the present. So if someone says that this day, this present day of ours, before it there was a day, and before that there was a day, and before that there was a day, forever into the past, then what he's saying really is that this day doesn't even exist. But he didn't realize that. He didn't know the absurdity of what he was saying. Unless he's a very evil person who knows that that's what he's saying and he says it anyway, to misguide the creations. and to sicken their minds. There are people who specialize in fallacies. They specialize in fallacies, in logical fallacies. And they feed those to people, and they sicken their mind, and they brainwash them. Do you know who are some of those people? Psychologists. وَمَثَّلَ بَعْضُهُمْ بِهَذِهِ الْعِبَارَةِ, and some have exemplified that, given the example of that by this expression: ما أعطيتك دينارا إلا وأعطيتك قبله دينارا. I would not give you a dinar unless I gave you before it a dinar. وما أعطيتك دينارا إلا وأعطيتك قبله دينارا. And I won't give you that dinar unless I gave you before it another dinar. وَهَذَا يُؤَدِّي إِلَى الْمُحَالِ, and this leads to the impossible. If you'd like to see some detailed talk about that, Shaykh has it in Al-Maqalat Al-Sunniyah fi Kashfi Dalalat Ibn Taymiyyah, his refutation book of Ibn Taymiyyah. He has a section in there that talks about Taalsul at length. وَلَمْ يَقُلْ بِهَذَا مُسْلِمٌ فِي السَّلَفِ وَلَا فِي الْخَلَفِ, and no Muslim from the Salaf nor from the Khalaf have ever spoken about this. إِلَّا أَنَّ بَعْضَ أَدْعِيَاءِ الْحَدِيثِ وَهُوَ ابْنُ تَيْمِيَّةَ قَالَ بِأَنَّ نَوْعَ الْعَالَمِ أَزَلِيٌّ قَدِيمٌ. But some who are claimers of the hadith science, perpetrators, some hadith science perpetrators, and that's Ibn Taymiyyah. So that's the Shaykh there, roasting Ibn Taymiyyah if you want. Said, and he could have left his name ambiguous. Some hadith perpetrators said, some hadith perpetrators, and that's Ibn Taymiyyah, said that the world in its type is eternal. أي لم يزل مخلوق مع الله, meaning that there never ceased to be a creation with God. كما أن الله لم يزل موجودا, just as Allah never ceased to be existent. Why would Ibn Taymiyyah say that though? Because that's his answer to who objects to him for associating Allah with the Arsh. Because one would say to him, isn't Allah eternal? He would say, indeed. And one would say to him, aren't the attributes of Allah eternal? He would say, indeed. And one would say to him, are any of the attributes of Allah created? He would say, no. So then one would say to him, isn't the Arsh and the places and the directions, aren't they all created? So what's his answer then? If he says yes, then he will be refuting himself. He'll be denying what he wants to confirm. So his answer is, yes, they are created, but in their type, they are eternal. In their types. Each individual one is created, but in type, they are eternal. Meaning that this Arsh, this place of God, the place itself is created, but before that place, there was another one before it. And before that one, there was one before it. And before that one, there was one before it. And forever with no beginning. And really, really, really what he wants to say, what he is saying actually, is that the Arsh is eternal itself. That's what he's really, really, really saying. But he's covering that up with words that might slip past anyone who's not quick enough to catch what he's saying. Why is that? How is that? Because what he's saying is this. He's saying an idea in philosophy, which is that everything that's presently existing is different from what was existing a moment ago. The laptop that I'm talking into according to that, the one that's existing at this moment is not the same one that was existing a moment ago. And that's not the same one that was existing when we first started our lesson, etc. And the pen that I have in my hand, it's not the same pen that was in the pen holder yesterday. The one that was in the pen holder yesterday was a different one. So what is he really saying then? He's saying that's how the Arsh is. That Arsh he's sitting on, that's not the same Arsh he was sitting on before. But really it is the same one, actually. Just like the pen that I had in my hand now is the same pen that was in my hand that was in the pen holder. It's the same pen that was in the pen holder yesterday. وَمَعْنَى ذَلِكَ أَنَّهُ لَمْ يَزَلْ مَعَ اللَّهِ مَخْلُوقٌ فِيمَا مَضَى. And the meaning of that, according to that claim, is that there never ceased to be with God a creation into the past, إِلَى غَيْرِ انْتِهَاء, with no beginning. وَهَذَا كُفْرٌ صَرِيحٌ, and that's explicit blasphemy. كَمَا قَالَ الزَّرْكَشِيُّ وَغَيْرُهُ, just as Az-Zarkashi and others said. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Allah knows best. Let's stop there.